There are a few things that gamers hold in higher value than almost anything else. A favourite game, of course, or perhaps a treasured console, or a beaten-up old controller with a joystick that's loose in just the right way to make it comfortable. And then there's our save data. Whether they be measured in blocks or bytes, the save data for the games we play is worth its weight in gold. Or quite a bit more, actually. I don't think data weighs very much. As an account of the many hours we've spent questing, exploring, building, and playing, the data in our hard drives is valuable because it's the one thing that can never be replaced once it's gone. Something so important should feel somehow sacred to the game itself, but some games choose to take the cheapest of shots by threatening to delete our save data. Most won't actually do it, thankfully, but are you ever really willing to take that chance? Heads up that this list contains some endgame spoilers for Kid Icarus Uprising, Bravely Second, and Nier, so bear this in mind before proceeding. I'm Peter from TripleJump, and here are 10 games that threatened to delete your save data. Number 10. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. Developed in close collaboration with mental health experts and people living with psychosis, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is a dark, surreal tale about a woman trying to save the soul of her lover in a land where she can't tell reality from fantasy. As she descends deeper into the realm of the dead, Senua is forced to contend with monsters that would very much like to see her head separated from her body. During her first encounter with an enemy, she falls in battle, at which point the player is informed of a new wrinkle to the game. Senua has become afflicted with a condition called the Dark Rot, a malady that starts in her arm but will slowly spread across her body more and more with each defeat she suffers. Should the rot reach her head, the game warns you, this will mean the end of Senua's journey and your playthrough permanently. The phrase, "all progress will be lost," seems to have little room for interpretation about what exactly this means for your save file, but the ambiguity of the nature of the threat is what makes it so terrifying. How many deaths will it take to reach that point? Does resetting the game reset the rot? Well, you'll just have to play to find out. Number 9. Eternal Darkness: Sanity's Requiem. Nintendo systems have never been known for their darker and scarier titles, but when they do get scary, oh dear, can they be scary. Case in point, Eternal Darkness: Sanity's Requiem, a horror game published by Nintendo for the GameCube that draws heavy inspiration from the works of H.P. Lovecraft. One of its main gimmicks is the sanity meter, a gauge that drains slightly every time the player encounters something spooky or scary. Once your sanity gets low enough, you'll start being plagued by bizarre and often troubling hallucinations. You might see your character's limbs start spontaneously falling off, or bugs appear to crawl across your TV screen, or it might just pretend to give you the old blue screen of death. If you're particularly lacking in sanity, right after you save the game, it will ask you if you want to delete all your data, and then instantly erase all your progress while you're powerless to stop it. Not that there's anything to actually stop, of course, as it is, after all, only a hallucination. Unless that was actually real, and the entire rest of the game is the hallucination. Makes you think, doesn't it? No, it doesn't. That's really silly. Number 8. Animal Crossing. The Animal Crossing games have an extensive cast of NPCs that players have come to know and love across each installment, from the coffee-making pigeon Brewster to the guitar-playing dog KK Slider. But the one that left the biggest impression on many was the irate mole known as Mr. Resetti. Appearing only to those who turn off their system without saving the game first, Resetti punishes such miscreants by giving them a sizable piece of his mind and letting them know exactly what he thinks of their actions. items, chewing them up and spitting them out over the course of a very, very, very long-winded rant. Should an unfortunate soul provoke the wrath of Resetti one too many times, he may decide it's time to play his trump card and threaten to reset the player's entire game, forcing them to start from the beginning. The screen then suddenly cuts to black as if the system has powered off, lasting just long enough to make the player think he actually went through with it before Resetti pops back up to appreciate the look on your face. No matter what he may say, Resetti never actually follows through on his threats, but hopefully even the thought of such a thing is enough to scare a misbehaving player straight. Number 7. Gunstar Superheroes. When you're in the middle of a pulse-pounding run-and-gun action game, the sanctity of your save data is probably the last thing you want to think about. But that didn't stop the good folks behind Gunstar Superheroes from bringing it to the forefront of players' minds. Gunstar Superheroes puts players through the ringer with an onslaught of enemies, bullets, and some downright sadistic boss fights. In one of the later levels, things take the form of a board game, with the player rolling dice to advance towards the goal, with each space they land on providing a different challenge or boss to face. One of the possible bosses they can land on is the so-called file crash, which begins with a warning screen informing the player that their save data will be deleted if they fail this level, and advising them to reset if they can't take the pressure. In case that was too subtle, the level itself has the player fleeing from a giant falling tombstone engraved with a commemoration of the player's soon-to-be deleted file. Fortunately, this ploy is another false alarm, as your save data will be untouched regardless, but perhaps it was still deemed too intense, as the threat of the deletion was removed in the Western release of the game. Number 6. Banjo-Kazooie. Tutorials exist, in theory, to teach the player the core mechanics of a game. Basic controls, navigating menus, things of that ilk. Sometimes they teach more broadly applicable lessons though, such as don't trust anybody. In Banjo-Kazooie, Bottles the Mole is responsible for teaching the player everything they need to know to play the game. You have the option to bypass the tutorial if you wish, but if you change your mind and try talking to Bottles again, he'll become increasingly agitated until eventually he threatens to delete your save file. He won't do it, thankfully, so feel free to skip away, but it's a different story when you reach the Sandcastle. This is the area where you can enter hidden cheat codes to give yourself a leg up, but you'll be limited to only 2 at a time. If you attempt to enter a third, Bottles will interject to again threaten deletion if you defy his wisdom. This time though, if you're brave or foolhardy enough to ignore him, the game will actually make good on the threat, and you'll find yourself forced to start over from the beginning, wondering if maybe you should have played that tutorial after all. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, also shame on you. You shouldn't be so mean. Number 5. Earthbound. Piracy has been a serious issue within the gaming industry since its inception, and as such, many games have come up with ways to combat it through means both devious and comical. Earthbound's piracy protection, though, is downright diabolical. When booting up Earthbound, the game makes a number of different checks to detect whether or not it's being played on officially licensed hardware or not. If it catches you playing on a bootleg, you'll get a screen warning you that piracy is a crime with severe penalties. How severe? Well, should you continue on with playing, you may notice the game seems a bit harder than usual. And that's not your imagination playing tricks on you, it's the fact that the game will greatly increase the number of enemy counters if it detects piracy. The real coup de grace, though, doesn't come until the very end of the game. Just as you're about to face the final boss, the game will freeze. Upon resetting your console, you'll find that all of your save data has been completely deleted. It's a harsh sentence, especially after coming all the way to the very end of the game, but to be fair, you were warned. Number 4. Inscription. This next entry is about cards. Oh boy, I love cards. And it also happens to be a wild card entry. It's a shame I don't like cards. Well, actually, you're not playing a card game in Inscription. You're playing a video game about someone else playing a video game that is itself about playing a card game. The story here has more layers than a parfait. In the game's third act, one of the bosses you'll fight, or I suppose the character your character is playing as will fight, is known as the Archivist, an entity with the power to access the files on your hard drive. In the second phase of this battle, it will ask you to choose a file on your computer, specifically an old one that's dearest to your heart. The chosen file will be turned into a card with the power determined by its age, and only then does the player learn the catch. If the card is defeated, their file is deleted. Oh, I'm a poet and I didn't realise it. This very much put the willies up many players who chose things like the game's exe file or their computer's system startup. But don't worry, if the card is destroyed, all you'll actually get is a text file where the archivist admits he can't actually delete it and politely requests that you delete it yourself. And if you do, you'll get an achievement. Yay! Number 3. Kid Icarus Uprising. Much like the older games in the series, Kid Icarus Uprising sends players into battle against the dark forces of the underworld and sees them eventually coming into conflict with their supreme leader, the Greek god of the dead, Hades. Contrary to what one might expect from somebody with such a grim job title, Hades is really a rather jovial fellow, often cracking jokes and throwing zingers at the heroes, while also trying to kill them at the same time, of course. As is only fitting for someone who loves the sound of his own voice so much, Hades always has to have the last word in any conversation, even when he should be past the point of having conversations at all. After beating the game and watching the end credits roll, an Easter egg can be found by hanging around for a few minutes until players are greeted once more by the dulcet tones of a disembodied Hades.
Well, I must say I am impressed.
Who will throw out a parting shot and threaten to punish the player by deleting their save data.
Which is why I'm here to delete your save data.
You might well have a heart attack when the screen suddenly goes dark, but thankfully it's just a ploy, as even a god such as Hades is powerless to bring death to abstract files, thank goodness. Number 2. Bravely Second. The games of the Bravely Default series have always been willing to play around with the normal rules of an RPG by letting the player do things like freeze time or destroy the crystals they're supposed to be saving. Bravely Second, which shockingly is the second installment of the series, amps things up in its finale just in time for the final boss, a despotic god of evil who decimates the party with an arsenal of powerful moves and a seemingly bottomless bag of tricks. Once his health drops below 50%, the boss pulls out his secret weapon, messing directly with the player themselves. In a move that completely shatters the fourth wall, the boss seems to address the player directly and begins interfering with their ability to control the game, such as making their party members attack each other. He even goes as far as attempting to delete the player's file, erasing all of the progress that led up to this final climactic battle. Mercifully, he's stopped at the last minute, and the battle instead continues into its second phase so the player can save the world as they're meant to. But still, that was far too close for comfort. And number 1, Nier. They say the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. But then again, the Nier games were never known for being particularly sane. As a spin-off from the Drakengard games, Nier follows in the footsteps of its parent series by offering players numerous different endings to unlock through multiple playthroughs of the game, each one shedding a bit more light on the story's many mysteries. One of the most pivotal endings available hinges on the player's decision to sacrifice their own life for the good of others. If the player chooses to take the plunge and confirms their choice through myriad warnings about the consequences, they will find that their character isn't just dead, but entirely erased from existence, literally. All of their save data will be gone, along with any record of that file ever existing, as the game will even prevent players from starting a new file with the same name as the deleted data. When the game eventually got a remaster for next gen, a new ending was teased that could provide players with a new lease on their old life. Remember kids, even if you think you've erased something, it's never truly gone. An important life lesson, and more to the point, an even more important online safety tip. Be careful what you put out there, everybody.